This is Let's Talk Radio. We get to the root causes with your help of the most important issues of the day. We are an online community forum, and your voice matters. So you got to call in. You got to join us, okay? We're going to welcome your views. We welcome your judgments. Oh, excuse me. We're not going to judge your views. You can reach us at 415-663-8492 or get us tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR.
Well, I didn't bring the tweet box, so,
okay.
you know.
Is there an email?
The phone will do it.
Okay.
Email, yes, we could do, let's see, what would it be?
Remember, 663-8492.
Or 8317. Feel free to call in. Your hosts today are Shelley Rugg, Stephen Hurwitz. I'm Paul Raffel. When you call in, you'll hear the phone. When the phone is ringing, please hang on. When you hear me say, you'll hear this sort of raspy sound, electronic sound, as I patch you into the system. When you hear me say you're on the air, please give us your first name, turn down your radio, and please watch your language. And today, the broad topic of discussion is democracy. Really, what are the threats to democracy that we're might be facing right now? And is democracy outmoded? Do we need a different form of government? These are the big questions of the day. What would it be? What are you willing to do if you see that democracy, as we call it, is going away? What would you do?
I think we need
all
it,
these many
actually.
questions.
I'd like to see it come on.
What's that?
Democracy.
You'd like to see more democracy. Well, yes, there's part of the question. Obviously, we don't have a true democracy because that would be one person, one vote actually on everything that happens in the country, which we know is not happening because, there are structures in the way like the Electoral College and all that stuff. On a local level, perhaps we have democracy if we make our voices heard, but on a federal level, who knows? And is it time? Is it time to scrap it? Maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah, the people who are behind the scenes and who know the rules of the game rather well because they made a lot of the rules, they know how to cheat the game and get away with it, is what it seems.
Well, they pushed the boundaries, correct? I mean, it's like Citizens United, that decision, where there was no limit on how much money you could put into politics. Isn't that the end of democracy right there? Suddenly it's a plutocracy. Well, suddenly. It always has been. Isn't every government in the world, really, except maybe Uruguay? Is Uruguay again. A plutocracy where big money counts, big money talks.
How is that different from oligarchy? I think it's an oligarchy.
Oligarchy is a select few. Plutocracy is the wealthy, run by the wealthy, But oligarchy, plutocracy, same thing. It just rhymes with democracy.
I see. I think
I'm a poet,
But your feet do show it, Paul.
Oh, thank you so much.
The thing that the common trait is money. Money buys it.
Okay, so then.
So let's get some money. We want to buy some too.
Yeah. Maybe if all us little folks got together and pooled our resources, we could take over on this situation.
Yeah, except as we know, the 0.1% have. what is it, 60% of the wealth, or 1% have 60% of the wealth?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, growing up, we were taught that we were democratic, and somehow that made us so special,
Right.
and the rest of the world wasn't, and somehow we had this mission to carry. It was almost like evangelical mission to
It
carry
was. It
democracy
still
to
is.
the rest of the world.
Yeah.
We're brought up with that.
And we'll do it by any means possible, especially if it involves troops and coups.
And I think that was the justification for Iraq. We were going to topple Hussein and then bring democracy
They'll
to the
welcome
military.
us with open arms. What could possibly go wrong? Were there any lessons to be learned from our intervention in Central America for 3 decades, or in when the CIA ousted Mossadegh in Iran? Because he was a socialist, and we didn't want any socialists there. We wanted what? Now, what have we got? Anyway, yes,
We have
at any cost,
capitalism,
we want to
yeah.
get rid of all the socialists and communists wherever they were, and replace them with America-approved.
So it's about power.
Puppets.
It's about being able to control things in the way that the wealthy people want to control it. I'm seeing a little bit of sociopathy, right? I mean, to go in and take over a population or eliminate a population, destroy a population, is not seeing them as human beings who matter. Anyway.
Yes, well, that was foreign policy, certainly, for a long time. I think there's still elements of it. And, I hate to say it, but isn't sociopathy kind of the code word in the White House now? I think, anyway, we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
My name is Charles, and I live in Marshall.
Oh, Biff, is that you?
It is me, Biff, and I must say that you have put paid to the idea that I am the source of the grimness on the show. I'm have all learned from me well, and I'm very pleased to see how depressed everyone is. I would say two things. One, people don't get involved in politics because they realize that their voice is not heard, and the government, as you say, is run in the interest of what big corporations and large concentrations of capital want. And it's been proved in studies.
Right.
The vast majority of people basically disenfranchised. So it depresses people. But the other side is, like, well, what do you want? And what do you guys in the studio want?
Well, exactly. That's the question.
What would you do if you had political power at the local level? What would you change?
I certainly wouldn't want that bridge.
This is something that Louis Mumford complained about 50 years ago.
Ah, Louis
I know
Mumford.
that Stephen Hurwitz is a student of Mumford, and so I really don't need to bring it up to him. But he said the problem is people know what they don't want, but that's easy. But they don't know what positively they'd like to change. They just have things that they know upset them. So what do you want to do positively, Mr. Hurwitz?
Are you talking on a federal level?
I'm a Republican. I have no idea what to do.
You're a Republican?
I think we just want to. I want to dredge up Hillary Clinton again and have another go at her.
Prop her up?
Well, no, she'll be back. She'll be back. She's not going to go quietly. We're actually going to have to get the whole stake and whatever, lift off the top of the coffin and drive it into her, tiny crozzled heart.
So when you talk about democracy, what do I want to do? Is government too important to be left into the hands of disenfranchised coal miners?
Well, what do you want to do? You don't like coal miners, so what? Who cares? We don't have any coal miners around here. What does Steve Hurwitz want to do?
Boy, I
Wow, he's
want to
really
be an
putting you on the
oligarch.
spot.
I want to be an oligarch.
He wants to be an oligarch. There you go.
Well, that's close enough.
Well, so as
Landlord.
personal decisions at local levels, right? I mean, that's the only true method of democracy existing here.
It's a political stage in which you can be an actor in that theater, and you can have some influence. You can't have any influence in Washington, D.C.
Well, if you begin with, I would not want to funnel half of our gross dimensional product to arms. First thing, if you ask me what to do, is I would drastically cut our defense budget.
Yeah, I
Use
think
that
it's
as
a
a start.
beautiful thought, and I would agree with you, but I'd say we don't really have very much power to do anything about that. But what we could do is change the reasons why we have a global empire, which is that places like West Marin that pride themselves on their local rutabagas, and no, I'm not talking about that guy with the beard that's always out there, and nonsense like that. That's not actually very local at all. We're
Nonsense like
upon
that.
These
Okay.
huge global networks of trade. That's where our wealth comes from. That's where a lot of our food comes from. That's where all our fuel comes from, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
So we couldn't take over the federal government and say we're not going to spend half the budget on the military, but we could actually change the conditions locally that require there to be battleships in the Straits of Hormuz and constant warfare in the Middle East in order to keep these global supply chains going. But maybe we should ask Shelley. Shelley, what do you want to change locally?
Oh, Charles, you just come on so strong. I get all weak and intimidated.
Well, darling, what are you doing after the show?
It's called mansplaining, I think.
We have to pay for lunch, but
Charles, for me, it always comes back to the concept of the village. That animals take care of each other, human beings can take care of each other, and when we create systems that abuse the environment and humanity, that it just feels so wrong to me. So I don't know how to get back to a system where each voice is heard and that we care about each other. I don't know how.
Well, I mean, each voice is heard is a problem, right? Because in politics, you do need leadership. I did hear Paul Raffel say mansplaining in the background. Man speaking, not, being some kind of ninny at some solstice ceremony over Inverness or something. So I apologize for having thought and expressing it with my mouth.
No, you mentioned leadership, though. That's a good idea. The people that want to be leaders are necessarily the people that want to be leaders for a good reason.
Well, Gore Vidal said anybody who wants to become president should be disqualified by that desire from so doing.
Right.
Often they're borderline personalities. They're kind of weird, dissembling people. Even on a local level, they're pretty weird.
So what would be your? I mean, we're all agreeing that we have no democratic effect in Washington. So what would be your solution to that, or perhaps a solution, or an idea for a solution?
The only thought that I had was think about some kind of fundamental relationship. So if you think about, we want to change the world, we want to have a village, there's a couple elements of that. One, we have to constitute a we. There's no we here. There are a bunch of people who individually are able to survive in relationship to this global economy, and sometimes they have parties, and they call that a community.
As always, your really
sick line.
really bitter take on West Marin. Thank you so much.
I go to the parties. I mean, I organize them sometimes. But the thing is, think about some fundamental relationship: our relationship to water, our relationship to food, our relationship to energy. And think about what is that relationship and how that might be changed. And actually, what I found personally is that localities, places, communities can use the existing law and their voice as activists and as leaders and followers and all the rest of it. Try and get in and change some of those relationships. Never going to change the hearts and minds of people. That's insane.
So,
they're not. You can march until your feet drop off. You are not going to melt the heart of the emperor.
So what? If you want to talk about the we, what are you participating in here in West Marin?
Well,
that you would use the word we.
I'm going to go to that meeting and tell them something really basic, and we'll just say it on the air so everybody can have it, because got to get ideas out there. Is say that if you want to change something in terms of what the county law is, and this is regarding vacation rentals or something like that, I'm not tremendously interested in it, but you go around to each one of the little village associations, which are these sort of mad talking shops, except for, of course, the East Shore Planning Group, which is, quite sophisticated and well run.
You're not on that, right?
Yes, actually, both me and Paul are on board.
You didn't answer my question. You're saying what you should do. I want to know what you're doing.
Charles, you have to wait until Stephen has finished his thought.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, well, you're talking and he's talking. We can't hear you, so...
You've been told, by the way.
All right, Stephen, what is your thought?
I'm asking, you keep telling us what we should do. I want to know what you're doing to
well,
create the we.
You interrupted my answer.
To be part of the we, but not at an abstract level.
You interrupted my answer.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
A meeting.
Go ahead, caller.
The local community land trust. And I'm going to explain to them how you create bottom-up political pressure to get something to happen at the Board of Supervisors. Okay, so you do that by going to the village associations and getting them to pass resolutions that say, we want the Board of Supervisors to do X.
So you're saying you are going to the village association?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Okay. So, and then you take all those pieces of paper that are resolutions passed by the Inverness Association and the Point Reyes Village Association, and you take them to your supervisor and say, look, all of these local villages, these organizations say, we want you to do X. And then you have created this pressure for them to do something, and you go to the meetings, and you have your voice be heard. And then they can vote against you or not do what you want, but that means that somebody's going to run against whoever the supervisor is next time, and people are going to become upset with them. So you create pressure from the bottom up, and it's just kind of basic organizing, but also, getting people to pass resolutions, going around to their meetings, trying to get people to do things like that. So that's just a kind of basic thing you can do. And that's so that's all I'm going to say.
Democracy at work. But it has, as we're all saying, it has no effect in the greater scheme of things in the country. So what does that mean? Does that mean we should devolve? We should secede?
Devolution is a great idea. But yes. But also you have influence tangentially. If Westmoreland is able to do something that is really useful, it really helps some particular issue, other communities will pay attention to that. People will look at that and say, oh, that worked for those people, let's try that, right? So you don't get to go to Washington, D.C., and your person becomes the president and, or the world changes in some magical Gestalt flip or Marxist revolution or whatever. But you can change things, as I say, tangentially. Or if you want to be very pretentious, dialectically. You can have influence. Yeah,
so, for example, California has always led the way on cafe standards and all that, environmental regs, and a lot of the country follows on, much to the chagrin of the Republicans, of course.
Yeah, that's right. And, at the state level, it's not so great. But I guarantee you, if, like, my idea for Westmoreland would be to tax tourism somehow, right? And my idea would be a sales tax, which is regressive, but whatever. The people can pay. And use that to develop the local community by investing in it. I don't know how. I mean, that would be a debate that would need to be had. But if it happened and it worked, I guarantee you other communities up and down the coast in California and eventually across the state and the country would say, oh, look, there's a way they raised the tax and they use that money to invest in their community, and their community is better off than our community is. People will pay attention to that, and they will try and replicate that idea.
It's like the old localization movement back in the 90s when places...
Yeah, people are really depressed. I mean, the other thing, why is my generation not interested in politics? The studies and the polls you see, they're so bored with things like that.
Yeah.
Well, their parents' generation got crushed, basically, by the Cold War. Basically, whatever dreams that were left in places like coastal California or West Marin from the 1970s just got stamped out in the 80s. And then the Clintons followed on by being just hideous beasts, and so my parents are depressed. They don't want to do anything because they got beaten down. But their children have inherited that without understanding that was a political moment. That was an event in history that happened, and new things can happen now
at different times.
And new possibilities.
It seems to me a transformation takes place when you talk about local versus national. The people who are representatives, they started out like you're talking about. They had local issues. They were on school boards, etc. People got to know them. They were successful at the local level, and they started running for higher office. They were doing what you suggest, but there's this transformation that takes place between the local level and the national level, and they're playing in a different game. All of a sudden, they become on the national level, and they want to bring home the bacon, which means defense jobs, into their constituency. All of a sudden, things change. How does that happen?
That's a lack of wisdom. I mean, they're seduced by power. Well, that is sort of trans-historical. That is a problem of vanity that accrues to any person that has an idea and expresses it and maybe even has some success locally. Yeah, so a good local politician becomes this nightmare at the state level, and then they want to be your senator, and then they want to be the president.
Yeah.
And so, that's right. So I would just say that part of it is the reassertion of the local would be to have some pride in it. And frankly, I can't see the pride that people have who are constantly in transit. They're, that constantly are flying around the world and stuff like that. I don't stay in one place. Stay in one place all day, every day, for a whole year. And, we'll start this whole thing about raising money to invest in these local places and try and build communities out of them by a ban on air travel for all people in West Marin, and all the money they would have spent on their 8 vacations this year will go into the fund. Just for 1 year. In 2018, everybody can go back to Oaxaca. It's fine.
And this is Charles Schultz Radio.
And as we said last week, of course, the biggest thing you can do is not have that extra child.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's powerful.
Well, you guys are doing your part. I'll have to say that.
No, 663-8492. Please, call in. I'm trying to help.
Do call in. Speaking...
Well, thanks so much, guys. I think it's a great topic, but think about your relationship to the things that you need to survive.
Right.
How that might change. Right. And that's and that can be the beginning of a kind of contemplation of, how to change something collectively so that we, survive in a different way. Right now, like, being really ethical means you have enough money to buy really fancy food or put solar panels on your house. But that's only what a rich individual can do. Mm-hmm. So it's about what we can do collectively to change things for, all the people around us, not just ourselves individually.
Community gardens are a good...
that's not... We don't think that way for a lot of reasons, some good, some bad. But that's what I would think about. Anyway, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
Always nice to hear from you.
Take care, Stephen.
Charles Schultz. Do call in, won't you? 415-663-8492. We're talking about the ailing, what we like to call democracy in the U.S. Here's some kind of startling little polls. They correlated a lot of polls taken from since the 90s up to the present day. So right now, 41% of those born during the interwar and initial post-war decade, so the boomers, say it's 41% say it's absolutely essential to live in a democracy that has civil rights that protect people's liberty. Among millennials, this share falls to 32%. Not so terrible, but it shows an increasing apathy. They talk about the apathy. Let's see, 10% of citizens born... so the boomers say it's unimportant. 10% say it's unimportant in a democracy for people to choose their leaders in free elections. Well, on a scale of 1 to 5, it's unimportant. 10% say that. Among millennials, the figure rises to 26%, that elections don't matter.
Well, I know ever since I started voting... So I started voting back in the late 70s. I felt very ill-informed. No matter how much information came across in front of me, this guy says this and that guy says that, and they both say they're right. And so being able to actually be informed, and especially now in the era of fake news, it does... disempower one, makes you feel like, well, I'm casting a vote, but I don't feel solid in knowing if I've really made the right choice.
That's a really good point.
For the right person, yeah.
I think that's a good point. Things are so complex now that who has the time to sort through this stuff, really? Right. So we rely on other people who have.
So there's been an increase in single issue voting, right? I mean, if you don't like abortion, you vote for the woman who says, we won't allow abortion, I'm going to do away with abortion. So you'll vote for that person even if you object to their stance on Iraq or whatever, just because they're doing this one thing. And that's increasing, and that's also in these polls, that people...
Well, that
it's
sounds...
not so much about
that's
parties.
manipulation.
It's about single... Yeah.
Hot button issues.
And how do you know...
Marketing.
How do you know that they're telling the truth anymore? As we know...
We know somebody who...
Truth is, malleable now, and we have alternative truths. Support for authoritarianism is increasing, and the wealthy actually support it more, of course.
I wonder why.
And there's also an increase in even among millennials, and I don't want to. It's just the poll, right? They're talking about the next generations coming up. Saying that it would be advantageous. I think I forget what the figure is. It's something like 10 or 12% or 14% say it would be great to live in an authoritarian regime where the person in charge, the leader, doesn't have to worry about elections and Congress.
Having a constituency that they have to satisfy.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, though.
Wow.
I think that is a systematic.
Wow.
It's a systematic undermining of the roots of democracy or the choice of the people. Undermining the news is just one aspect of it.
And deconstructing all the agencies, all the public agencies that are there. There's nobody at the State Department anymore. Rex Tillerson's up there at the head of it, and they're just countermanding anything he wants to do.
And it's a definite strategy not to fill all these positions, which they haven't been doing.
Possibility of our president pardoning himself, his family, and his closest aides to short-circuit the sprawling investigation. And they're actively digging up dirt on the special counsel investigators right now, of course, because that's how politics works. And suggesting he would fire the special prosecutor.
It's good television,
for
right?
delving too deeply into his finances. I mean, he's just pushing, and it turns out there's nothing to stop him. Congress, since the days of Newt Gingrich, remember him? Newt Gingrich popped up again yesterday. Playing Goebbels, it said, for Trump.
No.
Attacking the Justice Department as a left-wing organization, and that it doesn't matter what they find out, they're left-wingers, and therefore it doesn't count. So,
There's an attack on reality.
Yeah.
We can't trust anything right now. And the things that are happening are so, extremely hard to believe. It's
devastating every day. Anyway,
you can trust.
You can trust us. You can trust us to give you a sympathetic ear. When you call in, you will call now. 415-663-8492. And this is KWMR 90.5 Point Radio Station, 89.9 Bolinas, 92.3 in San Geronimo Valley. This is Let's Talk Call-In Radio, in which we ask our listeners to call in and give us their views, because we can sit here and talk all day. That's not the point. We want you to talk all day. So, and programming on KWMR is brought to you by the Maritime Radio Historical Society, working to preserve West Marin's rich radio heritage. The nation's last working Morse code coast station is in action every Saturday from 12 to 4 p.m. at the RCA receiver site at 17400 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, just past G Ranch on the Point Reyes Peninsula. Information at 415-663-8982 or online at radiomarine.org. That's radio, marine.org. And we're also supported by To Celebrate Life Breast Cancer Foundation, raising funds to help underserved women and men living with breast cancer. Through its Bay Area Breast Cancer Grants Program, the foundation supports nonprofits that provide direct and emergency services and believes that no one should face breast cancer alone. Information about how to get involved is available at tocelebratelife.org. Democracy. Is it going away?
I just make one correction here. You keep asking people to call in. I don't think we should have people calling on. Don't do it. Do not call in. We don't want to hear your...
Reverse psychology at work. It's very subtle what Stephen's doing. Yes, don't call in, whatever you do. Let's see.
And the other thing about voting, it's hard to vote when you don't like any of the choices.
Yeah, that's right.
Or, then there's also the issues of, well, let's say you like one of the other parties. That's not the two big guys.
Big ones, right.
And then you've got a group of people that want to be angry with you for wasting your vote, throwing away your vote. It's hard to be a voter.
Right.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's always been a hard thing, a hard choice, a responsibility. Some people, because the system is so devastated from the original founder's dream, they consciously do not vote. They don't take part in it, and so therefore are not taking part in prolonging this system, which doesn't work. Of course, that it would be great if there was something else in its place, but America is turning its back on politics. Yes. There's an article talking about the post-political age that we're now living in, that politics doesn't work anymore, as I said, since Gingrich.
It works for those corporate folks.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Gingrich, back in the 90s, started this whole polemicization, this whole... two-sided thing, and that if you deal with the other side, then that's like treason to your party, and that the object was winning, not making laws, but just winning whatever it happened to be. That's why there's this. We're so polarized now. It's 25 years of this going on. It's gradually building and building. Now it doesn't. It's whatever Obama put in place, they want to demolish. That's the only thing they have in their minds right now.
These are the roots of authoritarianism, though.
Yes.
Creating a situation where people perceive that what they think doesn't count, and that leaves all these people. The article I was reading says that that action by Gingrich, that push to make it just everything along party lines and no compromise anywhere, like the Tea Party and all that stuff, has disempowered Congress. Now there is no check on the executive branch. There used to be 3 branches. The legislative branch was supposed to be a check on the executive branch.
Checks and balances, yes.
And there are no checks anymore because all they want to do is pass what they want to pass, and he's up there doing whatever he does. They back him up because he's a Republican who is showing party unity. And
there are midterm elections coming up, and it's going to be very interesting to see this business of reaction to health care. I think people get that, and when these guys have gone home to talk to their constituency, they found very strong opposition to. All of a sudden, everybody likes the Affordable Care Act because they're getting health care for the first time.
Yeah, and how about just tweaking the Affordable Care Act instead of taking it away? Because it was an Obama thing. It was a hated Democratic thing that was put in place.
Oh, you don't think it's because he was black?
Yes.
I don't subscribe to that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
That brings up something. If you have 2 parents, one parent is white, the other is black, their offspring is always black.
Yes, that's how it works in this country.
That's the default.
That's how it works.
And so it should.
Octoroons, remember that? Yeah. Well, that's been the history of the United States. Also, along with all this, along with gerrymandering, which is beyond all proportions now. I mean, outrageous. They're getting supermajorities. One party is getting supermajorities of legislators in the state, even though the state went to the other party. Madness. ALEC, him. The American Legislative Exchange Counsel, which is industry and right-wingers, who write laws for state legislators. And they bring them to them. They say,
Exactly.
here's a draft for your law. Here's a draft law that you need to put through. And they go, oh,
Word
thanks
for
for
word.
doing the work.
Word for word.
They are now they've drafted a proposal to return the power to select U.S. senators to state legislators. They want to repeal the 17th Amendment of 1913, in which it states that the voters vote for their senators. The people vote for senators, not legislators in the state. So, and the reason it was the 17th Amendment came into place was that there was so much backroom dealing, and they had the senator had no opinions of his own that mattered, because if the legislators didn't like him, they could retire him. They could get him out of there. They could bring him home, basically, and say, you're not doing the right thing.
So he was just a puppet. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I mean, he's just the front man for, I'll say, the Republican Party, because, we got a 50-50 chance that was the right party to choose. So they want to repeal the 17th Amendment, and they're pushing it in every Republican-held legislature across the country. It's got positive reviews from Republican senators, like from Utah, who has called the 17th Amendment a mistake. Somebody else said it's better as it reinforces the notion of federalism to have senators appointed by state legislators. And at this moment, Republicans control 69 of 99 state legislative chambers and hold both branches in 32 states. Republicans could potentially start with a supermajority of 64 U.S. senators if this goes through. So basically we're saying, it will be one party if this goes through in enough states. Something to look forward to. So the call in, won't you? Please stop my terrible, depressing prattle here. 415-663-8492.
How do these people grow up to think they know better than every other human?
Well, they are better people, obviously, because they've succeeded and they know who to take a bribe from. Oh, I'm not saying that. No, I didn't mean that.
Well, when you say they, you're meaning that we are
politicians. Politicians who get to the top are obviously superior beings. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a game.
This is a meritocracy,
really
isn't
well.
it? No? You don't think so?
No.
I see. And here was an interest. This really piqued my interest. I'm sorry I'm taking up so much room here, but back when the first Muslim travel ban came in, there was a situation in which the Department of Homeland Security, including the Customs and Border Patrol, were stopping people, revoking their visas, sending them back, deporting them. And they continued to do it even after a federal court said this couldn't be allowed, and it had to, we had to check. We couldn't just put this in place. It had to be discussed. Even though a federal court said it's had to stop, they kept on doing it. And it was only when Trump backed down, thanks to, I guess, the popular revolt in which all the major airports were filled with people sitting there and chanting and the outcry that happened. If he hadn't backed down that night, the U.S. Marshal Service, whose job is to enforce court orders, the U.S. Marshals would have gone to airports around the country and had an armed standoff with the Border Patrol.
Oh, my gosh.
That would be fun to see. I think what you're saying is...
He's just pushing, seeing how far he can go, and a little bit further
sometimes,
every time.
On the one hand, he's making things blatant, which have always been there. Lobbyists taking control of the very departments they were lobbying. It just is a demonstration that they were in control all the time, and now it's overt. He's revealing things that have always existed.
Yeah. Well, it's revealing the cracks in the system, and maybe, we need to call it something else other than democracy. Certainly.
I'd like to go back, though, to this myth of democracy. I grew up with the fact that, we grew up with this myth which is instilled in us from the beginning of education. And there's this myth that we have something very special, democracy, that it is our mission to spread this democracy to the world. And in some sense, perhaps this mission has been derived from Christianity, which definitely has a mission, and have sent missionaries throughout the world. So our mission, and if we need to invade Nicaragua, it's certainly under the guise of our mission, even though it isn't true. Talk about fake news.
Well, we're always the good guys, right? America is always the good guys.
Not anymore.
Well,
No, that's true. I think there's a population now that does not. In the 50s, when you had communism, it was clear there was this clear them or us. I don't think that exists today.
No, well, they're trying to find them or us. And it's coming down to between the two parties, right? That, Hillary and Obama are the Antichrist. And
Boss Tweed said, I don't care who gets elected as long as I get to nominate.
Exactly, right? And Alec Jones, of course, among others, other radio hosts who love to whip it all up, is calling for civil war. Yeah, so... There you go. The writer of this article who opened my eyes to this possible two enforcement agencies actually drawing on each other.
Isn't that treasonous?
He's calling it a trial balloon for a coup. He was testing how far the Department of Homeland Security can ignore Congress and the judiciary branch. Right, and see how far it can go. And if he hadn't stepped down, it would have been up to the Marshal Service to enforce the court order. Fantastic, fascinating stuff. State Department, all the decisions are being made by the Interior cabal. How many of them? 5 are there now? I don't know. Bannon, Kushner.
So we're kind of on one side of this story because there's definitely people out there that like things that are happening.
Yes.
I wish they'd call in.
I know.
There's a growing sympathy for authoritarianism. They want a strong leader, and whatever that means. That means
at all costs, apparently.
Well. Yeah, I mean, a strong leader means doing away with democracy. And who's to say that wouldn't be better? Hey, kingdoms have worked for thousands of years.
The point is we have that already. We have this royal family, and it's based on wealth. Just like in the past, the royalty were the wealthy. We have that today. And there is a myth that we have that we are involved in the decision making, but the candidates who run for higher office are bought and paid for. So the electorate feels like they have a choice when in fact they don't have a choice, and the people with the money, especially thanks to Citizens United, have a outsized chance of having the people who resent the people actually resenting themselves.
And so, but
that's
this
why
kind
I say
of
oligarch.
And this kind of talk that we're engaging in here is undermining the very electoral process just by us saying that we have no voice and our votes don't count and all that. When enough people think that and don't vote, then I don't know. Does that make a difference? I'm not sure it does anymore.
Well, fascism, you undermine the courts, you undermine the media, and you're undermine the efficacy of the vote. So you're laying the groundwork for fascism, and it's a surprise. I think it's even a surprise to me. I had a hard time feeling at one time that we could actually get a president and a higher level of government that actually wanted to create a fascist state, but in fact we do have that. And I was shocked. Now I'm not so shocked.
Yeah, right. Well, certainly, as I was saying, the two branches of government, the executive and the judiciary, are no longer separate. I'm not the judiciary, the legislative houses of Congress.
Well, and there's also the separation of church and state that seems to be falling apart.
That's right.
That's always
true.
Under attack, isn't it? Yes, religious freedom acts.
So they'll in fact have the churches will actually have the ability to get favored tax status and be political.
Yeah. Well, so what will we see for the future then? A third republic under which some other form of governance happens? What would it be? What other form of government?
It's just a pain to have to go through.
It is. It's a big, huge ball of wax.
And we are not equipped to deal with it. We being slightly older, I might say. Not, we are of a certain age, are we not? We're certainly over 40.
Okay.
And we're tired. It's up to the kids.
On the other hand, standing together, this generation has an experience in action, and if you go to Standing United, for example, you'll find that there are people who care, that are willing to act, that are organizing, and you can see that as one benefit. That it is radicalizing people. Whether it will it takes a good war to radicalize people. But my generation, they were actually grabbing us off the street and sending us to a nightmare. So it was easier to radicalize us.
Of course, your lives were at stake. Well, they're still at stake. But
we're in a nightmare right now.
And we're in a good war, by the way. We're helping in several wars in countries that are benighted and undemocratic.
Yeah, but in Afghanistan, girls are entitled to go to school now.
Ah, there you are, see?
What are you going to do?
Yeah, so what? Give us a call, won't you? We have a few minutes left. Well, give us a call. What does future politics in the U.S. look like? What are we foreseeing? Maybe this is the catalyst for revamping the Constitution and making sure that there's more separation between the three branches of government somehow. How would that happen? I don't know.
Well, maybe it's just a catalyst for bringing people together in opposition who perhaps were put to sleep with Obama, who there was not this strong opposition coming from the left. The right the right organized. They had a strong reason to organize, and now we're on the left are discovering that they're faced with something equally as dangerous.
And they, as we said, they have the majority of state legislatures in their pockets. So it's all local levels. It's at every level throughout government. We have to get involved in the whole thing. But yes. I'm so tired. Oh, sorry. We have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please? Hello. Oh, wrong one. Oh, sorry. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please? Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello.
I can. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We dialed the wrong telephone number.
Oh, you did?
But thank you.
It's a tushy call.
Who were you looking for? Never mind. Okay.
Oh,
Ask her what she feels anyway.
she hung up.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I don't know. If you can't, we have to act locally. That's all we can do.
Right.
Basically.
So the ground up thing that Charles was talking about, that starting small and making your local situation as much how you would like to see it, that exponentially could, expand. But it's overwhelming to think of an overhaul of the situation as it stands.
You join Standing Together. There are, I think that we're evolving. I mean, we're developing exactly what we want to. Standing Together. The playbook is to take over education boards, following the same handbook that the right used to develop the same effect on the other side of the coin. Obviously, the three people in this room are left-leaning, but we might be in the minority, even in West Marin.
There's certainly people who lean to the right. So if they want to get involved in Standing Together, how would people?
First of all, get in touch with Bing Gong, who is really the catalyst and the central figure. It's divided into interest groups. If ecology is important, if race is important, if LGBTG is important, there are groups. The Writers and Artists Group. People are putting together various actions on a local level on a very positive way to bring people together to discuss important issues. And if people want to get involved, that is the place to start.
Okay. So there's a Facebook page?
Well, there is a website that is still in progress, but it's westmarinstandingtogether.org.
Excellent.
So there is at least contact information on there currently.
There's that. And then whatever political stripe you belong to, it behooves you to go to some of the admittedly often boring supervisors' meetings, and it behooves you to be on the mailing list, email list of state senate,
Shelley,
state
can you
government.
tell us more about Standing Together?
Well, West Marin Standing Together is still in evolution, I think. When it first was initiated, there were, rooms full of people, and over time, it's kind of dwindled because I think people, they care, they want to do something, and then reality hits them that, oh my gosh, I only have so many hours in the day, I have to go to work, I have someone I have to take care of, whatever it might be. It becomes really problematic to bring everyone together in the room at the same time. But that said, people in the group are continuing to push forward and find ways to increase engagement and make it easy for people to do things that might make a difference. Yeah,
and you're putting out information it would be on the website, actions that need to be taken, and
actually, we're having a meeting
calling your politicians
this afternoon to get the website development moving.
Excellent.
Because it is something that would need at minimum weekly updates, ideally daily updates. There would be a page, here's the most important action for today. Information. It ultimately will be a resource for people locally to get involved and make a difference.
Great. There you are.
Am I right that that's what I said, Bing Gong is a place to start, or that is
there
another
absolutely.
place? Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you get in touch with Bing Gong? That would be...
I know.
Is there info
I think it's binggong@sonic.net.
Oh,
but that's just my memory kicking in.
Pass the word and heal it.
But if you go to the website, the contact information is on there.
Yeah. Okay.
So every committee that's under West Marin Standing Together is listed along with a primary contact person, email addresses, phone numbers. It's all on there.
And there's this constant need to call senators and congressmen and...
Direct actions.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're not used to, you're not in the practice of doing these kind of things. I know for me, it's hard for me to get that ball rolling. I, as an artist, I like creating and projects and making stuff happen, but sitting down and calling someone up and saying, I don't like this or I like this better. It's like a habit. It's a muscle you have to develop that we're just not in the habit of.
Yeah, right. Well, and we've all kind of gotten out of the habit of participatory democracy.
But
I would
again,
say.
if you go to a meeting, you'll see that the generation is older.
Correct.
Enlisting younger, maybe the younger people don't exist around here. Maybe they've been chased out.
Well, no, they're here. I think that's something that definitely Westmoreland Standing Together is planning, is to outreach a little more strongly to the younger generation and get some engagement and find out what issues are the most important to them and how we can all help each other.
Democracy at work.
Reinstitute the draft.
Well, that'll get young people interested for sure. It worked last time.
It worked last time.
That's why they'll never do it again.
Oh, good.
Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, Charles, for calling in. And I don't know, what are we looking forward to? We're looking forward to a bright new future, perhaps with rewritten constitutions and more safeguards in place. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? An evolution of democracy rather than relying on this 200-year-old document and trying to adhere to it, which is what the Supreme Court is now loaded on that side of doing. It's like the Word of God is written
right,
there.
like the Bible.
And we must, What did they mean? Well, okay. Maybe they meant to have maybe they didn't mean to make it easy for sociopaths to
take over
have
the world,
ultimate power. But anyway,
yes.
But don't kid yourself. These guys, if you look behind, if you look at their activities behind, there's some black moves there. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, absolutely. No, hey. The dream of this being the best country in the world. Yeah, okay, it's beautiful. But yes, we have certainly caused our share of misery. But anyway, looking forward to a hopeful future. Thank you so much for being here, Shelley and Stephen, and thanks to the listeners. And by the way, KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members.